Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and it is a pleasure to have you with us here on the program as we begin to talk about something that is, well, it's pretty prevalent in our society today. I mean, I've been through it once. However, I didn't have any kids. And we're going to talk about this from the standpoint of a book that has been written by my very special guest. Her name is Darlene Taylor. She's written a book. Basically, I love the title of this. It's really very cool. It's Not About Us. It's a co-parenting survival guide to taking the high road. And Darlene has, you got a few letters after your name, MSW, CPC. She's going to share her story about a lot of different things. Darlene, thank you for joining us here on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Granted, I can't really relate that closely because I don't have any kids, even from my first marriage, let alone my second. I've got animals. I don't think this applies to that situation. But I also know, too, that it's a situation that can be very frustrating for the parents who have children who, despite the differences that brought them to the divorce, the similarities are that they are parents of these children, one or more, and they would like to give them a strong foundation, but already there are cracks in that foundation, primarily because of the divorce, aren't there?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's really where most people are. You know, we hear so much about these horrible, contentious divorces and villainizing each side, and this person's this and this person's that. But I think most of the time in divorces, you just have two terribly sad people who are dealing with the breakup of this relationship that they didn't, probably did not see coming and did not want. And they have to figure out a way through all of that hurt to parent and parent well these children who didn't ask to be in the middle of this. And that can be really, really tough. But I think, most people are reasonable and want to get to a place where they can do it cooperatively, and that everybody can move forward in peace and be the best versions of themselves moving forward. And I think that's what I'm hoping that the book can help people do.
Well, again, it is not an easy, it's not an easy situation to work through. What kind of professionals are best to consult in a situation such as this? Do I go to a lawyer? Do I go to a therapist? What's your best recommendation to start this process?
I think it's a team, right? Like especially if you've been married and you're dealing with a divorce, obviously, you're going to have to work with a lawyer. At the beginning specifically, I think it's really important to hammer out a parenting plan, because that can take some of the emotion out of the decisions that have to be made to move forward, right? And pretty much every state, I think, requires you to file a parenting plan as far as who's going to do what with time and decisions and all of those things. So that's obviously really important. But I think as far when you talk about moving forward and best interest of the kids, I think it's really important for both parents to focus on their own healing, whether that be therapist, clergy, support group, whatever it is you need to do to work through the pain of the divorce. That's really important. And there are therapists that work specifically with families who are navigating divorce. There are divorce coaches that work specifically with people who are navigating divorce. I myself am a co-parenting coach. So not so much focused on the divorce part, but focused on how to help people get to a place where they can co-parent cooperatively. So there are some resources out there for people.
So that's obviously within the context of the book. And there are some phrases and questions that you want to stay away from, for starters, but also in that light that the kids, they don't want to hear, it's not your fault.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do need to hear that. Kids' worlds are really small, and and everything feels very personal. So I do think it is important for them to hear that. But also, I think maybe more important to focus on, okay, what are we going to do now? What is life going to look like now? And really giving them some stability in the midst of this really unstable time, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but that's really what they need. They need to know that their parents still love them. They need to know that they're still going to be taken care of. They need to know that their world is not going to be turned completely upside down, even though, maybe they're moving, or maybe one parent's moving out and all of these changes are happening. They need to know that there are some things that they can rely on, that they can depend on, and that there is some stability there.
Well, and I say this facetiously, I have no clue, and I could be so far off base and being so rude, but now you're going to have 2 Christmases. Nah, that doesn't cover the bases, does it?
No, I mean, no. I think, it's more complicated than that. But, I know, for my experience, when my daughter was 2 when we separated, and that was one of the things we talked about. I said, well, now, you get to, you have not 1 princess bedroom, but 2 princess bedrooms, so let's, trying to not bright sided, but just, trying to help them come to grips with what their new reality is. It's not, it doesn't do anyone any good to stew in what is lost at this point. You're not the family that you thought you were going to have, you're not going to have. You're just not.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're not a family still, because you are. And you have to figure out how to function as this new version of your family. And I think that's the best thing that parents can do, is help their kids figure out, okay, what does this look like now? What does my family look like now? My mom and my dad both love me. They both care about me. My mom lives here. My dad lives here. My daughter didn't even, we separated when she was 2. So she didn't even know that we had been married until she was like 8. And she found her wedding picture and she was like, you guys didn't tell me that you were married. She had no idea that we had ever been together. Her life had always been, mom lives here and dad lives here, and I'm here sometimes and I'm here sometimes. So, I always say that kids do as well as their parents do. So if you make their world okay for them, they will be okay. But you've also got to do your own work, and you've got to be okay. And you've got to be able to let go of the resentment of the end of that relationship, and let go of, one of the things that I talk about with being able to co-parent from the high road is being able to separate the parent from the partner. This person may not have been the partner that you wanted them to be, but that does not make them a bad parent. At some point, you looked at this person and thought, you know what? I want to have a child with you, and I believe and have faith that you're going to be a good parent. So just because now your romantic relationship ends doesn't mean that that's no longer true. And that's the part that I try to get people to really focus on. Who was this person as a parent that you chose? And can you, let go of this partner, this partner that they weren't to you? Okay, that is what it is, but that's over here. And that has nothing to do with your children. And that has nothing to do with their co-parenting. And that's the hard part.
Now, I have a question that is a little bit on the sensitive side.
Okay.
Is there a difference in the dynamic that you're dealing with within certain couples of different races, as opposed to couples of same race, and in terms of different races? I mean, because you have these different cultures that, have these different manifestations, if you will, again, the different dynamics.
Right. I think there can be, I think that there can be, but I think it's, to me, it's more a sense of kind of a family culture, maybe not as much as like, your racial or ethnic culture. Both my ex-husband and I, our parents were married for 30 plus years. There was not a lot of divorce on either side of our family. So we had no idea what the heck we were doing. We had no idea how to navigate relationships, and neither one of us really had a whole lot of experience with that. So I think that's more of a sense of, if you've got families who have had experience navigating that before, I think that, that kind of matters. I think that can either help or hurt, because if it was a negative experience, then they may only know how to do it in a really negative way, and you may be trying to do it in a really positive way, and that could really cause some conflict. But for us, I didn't really see anything that I thought was particularly different or strained as far as our racial differences. It was more just a sense of, every family sort of behaves differently and navigates their worlds differently. And so now I felt more like for my daughter that she was sort of going to have to learn the culture of two different families and be able to shift between those two more so than she would have if we were still together, because then we would sort of have created our own culture that was a blend of both of those, if that makes sense. But now that she's kind of going back and forth, and I'm over here and I'm with mom, and this is how things go with mom, and this is how things are with dad, and just sort of trying to balance that and learning how to juggle both of those things.
We are talking with Darlene Taylor. We're talking about her latest work and the work that she does regarding this particular book. It's Not About You, which I think is more directed toward the parent, the co-parenting. It's a co-parenting survival guide to taking the high road. Did you talk to Michelle about taking the high road? Is that where that comes from?
No, it was something that I found myself saying during the divorce all the time. I would always say, I'm like, oh, I hate the high road. I hate the high road so much, because it's just about, not being baited, not getting sucked into that negativity that's so easy to do, and keeping focus on, okay, I have to deal with this person. I have to learn how to deal with this person. This is the father of my child. He's not going anywhere. I'm going to have to figure out how to deal with him for the rest of her life, not just for the rest of my life or his life, but for the rest of her life, because she's got us connected forever. And just trying to keep my focus on that. Like, okay, we have to do this for her. We have to do this for her. And that's really, I think, what I mean by, staying on the high road, is keeping the focus on, it's not about us. None of this is about us. Stopped being about us as soon as she was born.
It's exactly. DarleneTaylor.com. That's the website. DarleneTaylor.com. We will be linked to your website, Darlene, so that folks can find out more about you, the work you're doing, and maybe connect with you and say, hey, I could use a little support here, a little help. It would be wonderful if everyone could stay married, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. I had the great pleasure of interviewing my parents 8 years ago.
Very cool.
And in that conversation, they shared two very important things. And obviously, when one gets divorced, these kind of go right out the window. The first one, which I found so profound, my mother basically said, and I'll shorten this up. She said, I have his back and he has mine, and I know that. Mm-hmm. And then they discussed how they both supported the other's aspirations, dreams, and so forth. And whether they liked it or not, whether they liked those aspirations, dreams, and so forth, they supported the other. Those two elements do kind of go out the window when one gets divorced. And I can attest to it, and I don't have any kids, but still, I was sitting in a meeting with my to-be former wife and her attorney, and I had gone to consult with an attorney. I paid the consultation fee, and I said, I'd like to, this is the breakdown I see it. This was in Arizona, by the way. And I laid it out for them. And of course, her attorney basically said, no, there's no way a judge is ever going to give you that, blah, blah, which of course, that's typical. But one of the things that my former wife said was, but you promised to blah, 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 to which I said, when you got an attorney, that changed all the rules. Now, I tried not to be aggressive, and angry and everything. But I did eventually get to a point where I said, you know what? I just want out. I don't care. I just want this over. Because it went on for, I was served on May Day, May 1st, or rather appropriate day for being sued. And the finalization was in January of the following year. So we're talking, what, 7-8 months, something. I'm not even going to try to do the math.
Oh, yeah.
No, and I just wanted out. I just wanted it over. And it finally was. But that's something that is very difficult. And let me ask you before we go any further, do you work with people who are on the verge, or is it only working with people who They've already gone through the paper. The ink is dry on the divorce papers. And now they're coming to you saying, hey, look, we got kids and we want what's best for them. We don't really get along too well. That's the reason why we're divorced.
Right.
How can you help?
Yeah, both. I've worked with both. And I think that I find it a little easier to work with people once the divorce is final and they've gotten a little bit of distance from the emotionality of the divorce. I mean, I think things are still if things are still highly contentious and you're still trying to figure out what this is even going to look like. That's a hard place to try to cooperate with someone that you're trying to split your life up from. You know what I mean? Those are so they're two very different things. But you said something when you're talking about your parents that I would like to come back to, that they have that your mom said that we have each other's back. And I know that. One of the things that I talk about in the book is that even as a co-parent, you still have to have that co-parent's back. If you're trying to co-parent from the high road and do what's best for your kids, you still need to have that other person's back, because your child needs to know that you all are a united front. Children are very smart. And once they figure out that there's a fracture, or that there's a fracture in there, they're going to manipulate that. Even the best, sweetest children will manipulate that. And so if you're trying to do what's best for them and let them know that you all, even if you are not married, you are still partners in parenting them and still doing that together as a team, you still have to have part of that. I mean, the whole reason I wrote this book is the very epitome of me having my ex's back. We lived in Ohio. We'd been in Ohio for a long, long time. We'd been divorced for 10 years at this point. Our daughter's 12 years old. And he comes to me and says, hey, I have this amazing job opportunity in California and I'd really like to take it, but I don't want to leave our daughter. Will you move? I had no reason to move. I had a fabulous life in Cincinnati. I had my home and my business and this huge family of friends that I had made. I'd been there for 18 years. At the end of the day, the best thing for our daughter was to have us both in her life consistently. So I moved. It was about her. The decision that I made was about her. But it was kind of having his back, because ultimately, you know what I mean? I didn't want to alienate him as her dad. I didn't want to take him out of her life. I didn't have to go. He wanted to move. It was his job. If he wanted to move, I could have said, hey, if you want to leave, that's fine. And I'll do what I can do. But in my opinion, doing what was best for her and keeping the focus on her, being on the high road, meant that every decision that I make has to be through the lens of what is best for her. And what is best for her is to have us both in her life consistently. So I moved.
Did that short circuit your life's plans, even when you think about it from the standpoint of, okay, I'm married and I've got these plans for my career, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then boom, divorce rears its ugly head. And now everything's sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, everything's short circuited. Now everything's changed.
Yeah, 100%. Everything has changed. Everything changed with the divorce. Like I said, not the life that I thought I was going to have. And then, with this move, everything changed. Yeah. I was mid 40s. I was not expecting to start over completely in a whole new place where I didn't know anybody, in Los Angeles of all places, which is not an easy place to move to when you don't have any connections and you don't have any, friends or family or anything. But again, in my opinion, kind of one of the biggest pieces of parenting is sacrifice. A lot of the decisions in my life stopped being about me as soon as I became a mom.
Mm-hmm.
It was what was best for her, and I will figure out how to make it what's best for me. And that's what I've done.
Here's an interesting twist on that. My parents almost made it to 62 years of marriage. My father passed away last March. And he almost made it to 92, which, would have been kind of nice too, but it is what it is. And one of the questions that I asked them in that interview 8 years ago was how I would share with people my parents' story and the 6 kids that they raised and all of the stuff that went along with that. And oh man, your folks must have really sacrificed. So I asked my mom and my dad, what, if anything, did you sacrifice to have this big family? And my mother said, nothing, because that's what we wanted. Now, they had no way of knowing, as far as I know, that 4 out of the 6 were going to have congenital visual issues that would plague them. Well, I shouldn't say plague them, that are part of their lives to this day. Myself, my brother, and my 2 younger sisters, along with my eldest sister, who had asthma and a bunch of other stuff that went on throughout her entire life until her passing a year ago. And then my elder sister, who I'm very close to, I communicate with her pretty much daily now, who's dealing with all of her stuff. No, there was no sacrifice, because this is what we wanted.
Right.
And to that end, I look at my life, even without kids, and I think, okay, is there anything I sacrificed? And I look back and I'm going, no, not really, because quite honestly, if I hadn't done the things that I did when I did them, first of all, I wouldn't be here talking with you right now.
Right. Exactly.
I also wouldn't be living by the ocean, which is where I have wanted to live for the better part of my life. Growing up in Phoenix, you beg for an ocean, especially in the summertime.
I bet.
So what about that little twist on what you were saying about the things that you sacrificed? Yeah. Would you maybe rephrase that to the context that, yes, I did have plans and I did want to have children, and when I had my first child, my only child at this point, these are the decisions that I now am going to make because I love my child and I love this life that's in my life, and so forth and so on.
Yeah. And it's funny. Yeah, absolutely. I don't see any decision that I've made for her as a sacrifice. It was really funny. I never used that word to describe the move until people said it to me, because it didn't feel, when I was making the decision, they were like, wow, that's huge. I can't believe you did that. That's a lot to sacrifice. And I never thought about it that way, because it felt like a no-brainer. Like, this is what's best for her. So this is what we're doing. And this is the decision that I'm making, and we're going to make it awesome. And let's, and that's kind of how I brought it to her. Like, we've got this adventure. Like, we're going on an adventure. We thought we were going to be in Ohio, and now we're going to be in California. And what's that going to be like? This is going to be awesome. And just kind of took it that way. So I never really thought about it like a sacrifice until other people started saying that it was a sacrifice. But yeah, I agree. All of the decisions that I've made, I wouldn't be here. If we hadn't moved, I wouldn't have written this book.
Right.
The whole book was about the move and everything that I learned, and upon reflecting on what we did as co-parents. And so, yeah, it's been, there've been a lot of blessings that come from the decisions that I've made, the decision to move here. And it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. And at the end of the day, when I look at my daughter and look at the relationship that she has with her dad, and look at how she's thriving, she's 17 now. It's no sacrifice. This is obviously the right thing to do. Like, she's great. And so it was the right thing to do. End of story.
Now, when you are working with co-parents who are struggling through this process, what are some of the first things that you share with them? And I would venture what are some of the first things you say to them are geared to them based upon the dynamic they have with each other.
Yeah, most of the time I don't work with couples together. I work with individuals.
Okay.
We're coming. Yeah, I have yet to. I would love to work with a couple that's in there, like saying, okay, let's figure this out. But usually it's one person. And so that's where I start. Like, you've got to let go of the idea that you have any control or say so in what's going to happen on the other side of this. What's going to happen with your co-parent. You can't, you have no input on that. You have probably no influence on that, even at this point. So all you have control over is what you do from this point on. Who do you want to be as a co-parent? Who do you want to be as a parent? What kind of experience do you want your children to have when they think back on their parents' divorce and their life with their mom and their dad divorced? What do you want them to look back on? And how do you want to feel about yourself and about the way that you've handled yourself as a co-parent and through the divorce? And that's where I really start. For me, one of the things that I say is sort of the, I don't know, kind of, I guess, backbone of how I handled myself through the divorce. Very early on, I was, very frustrated. Things were really hard. Divorce is hard. Even the best of divorces is hard. And this was far from the best of divorces. So it was very difficult. I was hurt. He was hurt. It was bad. And I just wanted to be petty, and we were arguing all the time, and it was just so contentious. But I was thinking about it, and I felt like, the only person in the world who I owe an explanation to is my daughter. She's the only person I owe an explanation to about anything, in my opinion. And I didn't ever at some point, she could come back to me and say, hey, Mom, why did you do this? Why did you say this? Why did you make this decision when it comes to her life? And I owed her an explanation. And I didn't want to ever be embarrassed or ashamed about something that I did or something that I said. And that was my guiding light through the whole time. Like when I wanted to take the low road, when I wanted to be petty, when I wanted to make things difficult just because I could, I have to own up to that. And that was, and that's kind of, I start the conversation there as well. Like, your kids can ask you about this, and you, the future you is going to look back, and do you want to be ashamed of that you and go, God, I wish I would have done things a little bit differently. I could have, things could have, I have a little bit of part to play in trying to smooth this out. And I talk about co-parenting on the high road. And one of the things that I say in the book is that you're not going to get there at the same time. One of you is going to have to go up there first. And you're going to have to go up there first and be the example. Give them the trust, give them the respect, give them the grace that you want back from them. And you got to hope that they meet you up there. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but that still doesn't change who you are and who you can be as a co-parent.
There was a Maximum Marriage seminar audio tape that I had. This is back in the 80s, and I was working for a religious radio station, and he was a marriage counselor as well as a minister. And he used to talk, he would talk about this one couple that came in, and the wife was just there berating the husband to the therapist, whose name I cannot remember. Anyway, and the husband's over there just cowering, almost in tears. And that was one of the things that I remember. But another one that he said to the same couple, he says, all right, you want to fix this? And you want to know who has to start? I'll tell you who has to start. And he looked at the two of them and said, you do. He didn't point to one or the other. Okay. He said, you do. Both of you have to start. You can't wait for the other. Yep. It's real interesting. And I wanted to ask you a question that actually requires two answers, or maybe not. Maybe it only requires one. But think back on the process of the divorce. You said it was hard, and I went through my own. That took, again, it took. I'm still trying to figure out 8 months. That was it, 8 months. Okay, I did the math, and it was 8 months. And at one point, I just wanted out. I mean, I was deposed. I was in a deposition that cost me an hour and a half of attorney's fees. In any event, and I was wondering, when if you take a look at then when you were going through it, and now you're on the other side of it, how would you answer this question, or maybe this statement that you might ask yourself? If there had only been a test I could have taken before we got married, so I would not have had to have gone through this, would you have gone through it again from the point of going through the divorce, and now here you are X number of years later? I can almost imagine. I think I know what the answer is today, but what about back then?
Yeah, I think back then I probably would have said, back then I would have said yes, because I would have wanted to do anything to not feel what I was feeling back then. It was the hardest thing. Going through the divorce was one of the hardest at that point in my life. Was the hardest thing that I had ever been through, since I've lost my father and have, life happens as you get older. And but at that point in my life, that was the hardest thing I had been through. So I think I probably would have said, yeah, if that would have helped me avoid being here. And I felt, I felt the shame, unfortunately, that a lot of people feel when your marriage fails. I'm highly competitive person, and I'm a perfectionist and a high achiever, and I don't fail at things. And I'm like, how am I failing at this? And so, anything that I could have done, I feel like, to not feel those things, I think I probably would have chosen at that point. But sitting here today, absolutely not. As hard as it was, it's made me into the person that I am today. I think, I don't know that I wouldn't be this person, if I had not gone through that. And I honestly, I don't know if I would be the mom that I am if I hadn't gone through that either. I think that as crazy as that sounds, I think that I'm a better mom, and I think that he's a better dad.
How do you, you can't answer for him, but how do you feel about your relationship with him today, as compared to obviously going through the divorce, which I'm sure you just wish he would just drop off the face of the earth. Make it easy for me.
Yeah, right. No, today we're friends. We're friends. I respect him as a father. I respect him, and I respect him as a co-parent. There's a lot of respect between us now that I didn't know we would ever get to that place. During the divorce, I don't think that I wanted to. I really wanted to. I had this, sort of Bruce and Demi Moore idea of how we were going to be, we were all going to be able to be there together with our new partners and our kid, and be like everybody, one big happy family. And it didn't feel like we would ever get there. And miraculously, we are there. I am really good friends with his new partner. She and I go to karaoke and brunch often.
Wow.
And he and I, we exchange funny memes, and he just sent me a text earlier today because our daughter's going to be in a play tonight, and he got one of the stills from their dress rehearsal yesterday, and he's like, look at her go. And I didn't ever think that we were going to get to that place where we're friends now. And I know that I do have to say that I recognize that may not be the path for everyone, and everyone may not want to get to that place, and that's okay. I'm not saying that that's the only way to be a good co-parent. For me, the peace that brings me is immeasurable, because it's not just that he and I get along, you know what I mean? But that is a relationship that does not cause any stress in my life anymore. That's a relationship that's positive, because this is somebody that I know, like I said, has my back as a parent. If Sammy is in trouble at my house, I pick up the phone and this is what happened. This is how this is her punishment. And I can guarantee that he's going to follow through with that when she's at his house. I don't have to worry about that. And so being able to be on a page like that with your co-parent after divorce did not happen overnight, did not happen in the first couple of years, but being able to be there now, to me, is the best gift that I think we could have given ourselves, and we could have given her, because I think that that's part of the reason that she is as emotionally healthy as she is.
Well, I can tell you that, again, I have no kids. So with my first wife, I don't like calling her my ex. It's
I know,
too demeaning.
I've been trying to find another way to say that.
I use the phrase former wife.
I like
She's
that.
not my present wife. She's my former wife.
Right. I like that. Okay.
I try to call her on occasion, but there are other circumstances surrounding the reasons that I don't. But I think about pretty much the first 10 to 12 years of our 15-year marriage. And it's like, wow, look at all the stuff we did. And we went this place and that place, and we experienced this and that and the other. And, I mean, there's a part of me that kind of misses that, However, I'm older, and no, I'm not going to say wiser. I'd like to think, but in this context, wisdom has nothing to do with it. But I'm older, and those are some of the things that, I would love to do, but I did them back when I was in my 20s and 30s. I mean, I married at 23. and she was 18. I just look back and I'm grateful for those experiences.
Right.
And there are times when, yes, I will call her just to see how she's doing. She's got her own health issues and so forth. And we chat for a little bit. And sometimes we'll get into some of the conversations that we used to get into when we were married. And again, this was along the more esoteric and spiritual realms, if you will. Do you and your former husband, who again, you say you're friends with, I would take it that based upon what you've already said, you have some of those conversations like you had in days gone by,
Yeah.
when things were good, so to speak, between the two of you.
Yeah.
And that is, the point I'm getting to is that it is not only good for you and him, but you are setting an example, yes, of course, for your daughter, but also for the people around you that, hey, it's not impossible, but you have to be willing.
Right.
You
And
have
the
to be
bad
willing.
stuff that we went through doesn't erase the good stuff. There's nothing in this world that's that black and white. There's nothing is one thing. We are all multi-layered people. Every situation is multi-layered. There's no black and white. Everything is shades of gray. And so, yeah, it took a long time, but we have gotten to the place where we can laugh about things and talk about things that happened early in our relationship. How the first thing he did, our first Valentine's Day together, was buy me a box of chocolates, and I was allergic to chocolate, and he should have known that at that point. And we can laugh about those things, and it's really nice, and I think it is really beautiful to be able to be in that space with him, and for Sammy to see that too. That's our daughter's name. For Sammy to see that too, to understand that, yeah, there's a lot to this story. There's a lot to our story. And I think she enjoys hearing about, parts of that and knowing what that history is, because that's all part of her story as well. That's all part of her journey. And it is nice. It is really nice to be able to do that and kind of have I think that shows the respect to my daughter, that he's always going to be her dad. That's always going to be her family. He may not be my husband anymore, so technically not my family, but that's always going to be her family. Her and her grandfather and her aunts and uncles and everyone on that side of the family. I feel really strongly too that if you had good relationships with that extended family, those don't also have to be a casualty of this divorce either, because those people are still your child's family, and so if you can preserve however that looks for you, those relationships, that's really nice too.
Yeah.
So, and I've tried to do that as well, because I'm around. I am, his dad and brother come to visit, and we go to basketball. He's a basketball coach, and so I go to the games as well as they go to the games. Like I'm Sammy's mom. I'm never going to not be around.
Right.
If she's there, I'm there. And so it just makes sense for us all to figure out what this new family dynamic is going to be and just roll with it. And I think when they saw the way that we worked and the way that we said, okay, we're going to move past this and get to this place where we can co-parent together, everybody else kind of falls in line. And I think that's the best thing that you can do as a supporter of someone who's trying to co-parent, is to just, do whatever you can to help them stay in a positive headspace. And you do whatever you can to do that as well, to fall in line and help them create the situation that's positive for everyone.
DarleneTaylor.com is the website. Darlene Taylor is my guest. And we're talking, of course, about this whole process of co-parenting. It's not about us. It's a co-parenting survival guide to taking the high road. And I want to ask you, as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, to talk about this process that folks are going through. I like the fact that we're using this concept of having each other's backs and supporting each other in their endeavors in the relationship. But then now you're divorced and now you're out of the relationship, but there's still a connection. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are, especially, and I don't know if this is stereotypical. Okay. So forgive me if I'm being stereotypical, but it seems like in the stereotype is that in Black families, the husband or the father disappears, and now there's no father figure. Your dynamic is you had a split. He didn't disappear. So
Right.
she still has, Sammy, your daughter still has a father figure. And it can happen in the reverse too, where the mother just says, nah, I can't deal with this. And now the father's raising the kid. And now you don't have the mother influence or what have you. Talk to me about that missing that missing link, pardon me, in the relationship where you really do need both sets of parents, the
Right.
father figure and the mother figure, to really raise, shall we say, a more balanced child?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of cooperative co-parenting, is understanding and respecting the role that each parent plays. And there are things that my daughter needs that she cannot get from me. There are things that she needs from her father that I can't give her. And there are things that she needs from her mother that he can't give her. And that was the driving force of me making this move. Like, I understood that. And there's mountains of research about what happens, particularly with girls when they don't have a father involved. And, boys too, it's different, but there's mountains of research. And so that's indisputable. Like, it is not in their best interest to have one parent. And so as much as you can, making sure that the divorce doesn't mean that the child loses one of their parents. That's not what's supposed to happen. The relationship is the casualty, but the child should not have to lose one of their parents. And so for me, when it comes to cooperative co-parenting, that was part of my job as well, is to make sure that I was not doing anything that was going to get in between him still being her dad. And that's what oftentimes happens, is particularly in these really contentious, bad divorces, is that's because people know that that's their power, right? That's that they can exert power over this person who has hurt them and who they want to hurt by manipulating time with the child, or by, you know what I mean? And that's horrible for the child particularly, but it's so hurtful and so harmful. And it's got lasting effects. This is not just something that happens, that they're dealing with in the moment. This has got lasting effects. And so if you're trying to do what's best for your child, it's not, the last thing that you should be doing is trying to alienate them from the other parent. And, sometimes that, if the person walks away, they walk away. But for me, and that's kind of what I say to other people, again, all you can control is yourself. So let me make sure that I'm not doing anything that is impeding this person from continuing to have a relationship with their child.
Yeah. It kind of grates against, shall we say it, against my chalkboard with fingernails. That phrase that our children are our future, and and they're very important. And then I see what goes on in our society, and I'm going, you don't care about the kids. You don't care whether it's parents, whether it's our institutions, our government, our religion, and so forth. I look and I go, you don't care. You really don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't allow this situation to continue. You wouldn't allow this situation. You would do something. But all you do is spout rhetoric and hyperbole and all of this stuff that means nothing and does nothing for the child.
And that's what people do. I think my kids are the most important thing to me. Really? Because you're not behaving as if they are. You're behaving like a 12-year-old who's mad that somebody took your ball and now you just went. That's what you're. You know what I mean? Don't tell me that your kids are the most important thing to you, and then you're doing everything that you can to badmouth their parent, their other parent, and keep them away from that other parent.
Yeah.
Knowing that is one of the most detrimental things that you can do with these people that you say are the most important things in your world. They're not. So is your behavior lining up with what you're actually saying? If you're I think every parent would say that. Every good parent would say, of course, my kids are the most important thing to me. Okay. Well, then if that's it, then that needs to be your question with everything that you do. Is this behavior reflecting that? If they really are the most important thing to me, is this behavior in line with that? Because if it's not, then you need to check yourself, because you're not doing what's best for them.
Have you had situations, and it sounds like you have, where you've had to be pretty blunt and bold, if you will, with a parent and saying, look, either do it or don't. Okay. But do something, because right now you are doing more harm to you and your child. Forget about the other parent for the moment. You're
Right.
doing more harm to you and your child that you say you care about. So either fish or cut bait. I was going to use another analogy. It
I
was
know.
a little crass.
I know exactly where you were going. That's where my head went. I really, the way I like to approach coaching, the way I approach therapies, I like to ask questions. I'm like, okay, so I kind of lay it out like, okay, so, what is the most important? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And then I'm like, okay, so now explain to me how this behavior fits in with that. If you put these two things and then you have to explain it, and now you're stuck there holding it like, okay, well, it doesn't. Okay, well then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Doing, and if I think, that's one of the things that I love about coaching and about therapy is that I don't have answers for people. I don't have your answers. I have no idea what's going to work for you. My job is to ask you some questions and help you figure out what the answers are for you, and help you kind of in coaching kind of guide you to make different decisions if you don't know how to make those different choices. And that's one of the things that I appreciated moving from being a therapist to being a coach, is that we're done unpacking the whys. We don't, that's therapy. We don't need to do that. Coaching is like, okay, I want to do something different. I want my life to look different. I want to make different choices. I want to be someplace different in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Help me. And that's what I love about coaching, is because, okay, we can action. So if you're really ready, then it's going to be uncomfortable because you're going to have to do things that you haven't done before. And you're going to have to, and there's going to be some ups and downs, and you're probably going to make some mistakes, and that's okay, but you're ready to do something different. And I think that, when it comes to co-parenting, it's uncomfortable, and you're going to have to, the high road means you're biting your tongue. The high road means you're not baiting people into fights and you're not taking the bait. The high road means, doing all these things that are not necessarily that comfortable. And really getting really, really familiar with the words compromise. And, and a lot of people don't like that word, nor do they understand that compromise doesn't mean you win sometimes and they win sometimes. Compromise means you're both giving up something.
Yeah. I think that the decisions have to be based in, as you are describing this, have to be based in what's best for the child.
Yeah.
Not what's best for me or the partner, the co-parent, but what's best for the child. Now, you, at the moment of, I got this new job in Los Angeles, I want to move. Would you move too? You could have said, no, I'm not moving. I'm not moving. And if you want to take our daughter, then take our daughter, because I've got this career and I've got this and that and the other thing. And you could have said, I'll visit when I can. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the choice you made, because it sounds to me like that wasn't the kind of relationship you wanted with your daughter as she was going to be growing up.
Right. Yeah. That wasn't even a thought.
Yeah.
That didn't even, that idea never even crossed my mind. Yeah, that's, and I could have said, like I said, you can go, and we're going to, this is where her life is. She doesn't want to leave. She's been at the same school since she was 3 years old. She's got all these friends. She's got a life. She doesn't really want to leave, so we're not going. And, we've got to, you can figure out how to make this work. Yeah. And, for a lot of people, and I think that would have been the right decision for some people. Mm-hmm. For me, that was not the right decision. A lot of people have said, that was a really big sacrifice that you made. And that's not what I would do for my ex. And would he have done it for you? I don't know. I don't know if he would have done it for me, but that's not my responsibility. I'm talking about what kind of co-parent I am. I have no say so in the kind of co-parent that he is.
Yeah.
So, for me, the kind of co-parent that I wanted to be, and for that, the decision to move was the right decision. And again, like I said, that might not have been the right decision for other people, but
right.
I felt like it was the best thing for our family.
It's not about us. Darlene Taylor's my guest. DarleneTaylor.com's the website, which we are going to be linked to. You'll be able to find out more about her, get a copy of the book through Amazon and many of the other usual outlets. I like the fact that now you can just keep it real brief instead of having to go down a list of places where the book can be found. Because It can be found all places. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Is it Audible yet?
Audiobook.
I was just going to ask about the audiobook.
Just released on October 31st.
Hey, all right.
I got to narrate it, which was awesome. That was
cool.
Really cool. Because the way the book is set up is it's a memoir and it's a self-help book. So each chapter is a story and the lesson that I learned. And so I couldn't imagine hearing someone else tell these really, really heartfelt stories. And I couldn't imagine hearing that in someone else's voice. So I really wanted to do the narration. The other thing that was so special about the book and the audiobook is that my former husband wrote the foreword to the book, and our daughter wrote the afterword to the book, and they both recorded their parts as well. So it's the book is our story and our words, and it's wonderful.
I applaud you. That if that doesn't keep the family together, even with the documents that show that you're no longer husband and wife, right, that's family to me. That's very cool. Congratulations on both the release of the audiobook, but also the participation of both your former husband and your daughter. That's fabulous. I produce them. I narrate them too. And you have a great voice for that. And so I'm glad you read it for the reasons that you stated. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a really cool process. It was really, really neat. I enjoyed it a lot. A lot harder than it looks.
Yes, it is.
but a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Over the years, I've done quite a number of books. For my former wife, who was totally blind, I was recording books on cassette for her all the time. Wow. And then I would also be reading. We'd read in bed certain metaphysical and spiritual books and so forth. And, like Ram Dass. And I remember Love is Letting Go of Fear by Gerald Jampolsky. Og Mandino and his books, The Greatest Miracle in the World, which is how I met my first wife. Wow. And on and on and on. And now it's a wonderful process. It is not an easy process, especially, I might add, if you are recording and editing it yourself.
Yes,
like I am.
I cannot imagine that.
Oh, it's quite a challenge, and sometimes you miss stuff. So you need a proof listener, and I had one who caught most of the things that I needed to correct. But it's a fun process, and when you finish, I mean, really finish, and I'm not yet with this one, but when you come to the finish where it's okay, put it up on Amazon.
Right.
Oh, what a feeling.
I mean, listen to it. I was the proof listener. I had to listen to it, and which was I had no intention of listening to it. I can't stand to hear my voice, so I had no intention of listening to it. But I had to go through and make sure that everything sounded the way I liked it, and I didn't want to re-record anything. So I had to listen to the whole thing, which was weird, surreal. But yeah, I think once we re-recorded everything, and then every time I hear bits and pieces of it, I'm like, wow, like that was it's still a big wow for me. This is a dream come true. I've always wanted to write a book. I always knew I would write a book. I didn't think it would be this book. Of course, back then there were no audiobooks, so I didn't imagine doing an audiobook, but just this whole process has been awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It's a fun process. It is awesome. And I'm sure you must have had the same wonderful feelings that you had when the print version was released. When you first got your, I don't know what they call it, author's copy.
Yes, it's funny. I the very first copy that I opened, I carry in my purse. It has been in my purse since I got it, and I carry it. When I carry it's never left. It's in my purse, and I my whole life I had been wanting this very, very expensive purse. And I was like, I just cannot fathom spending that much money on a bag. I can't rationalize that. I can't do that. But then when I started writing this book, I'm like, okay, if this book ever becomes a thing, if this book is something that I can actually hold in my hand and people can buy it, then I will reward myself with this bag. And so the day that I got that book in the mail, I took myself right to the store with my book, and I bought the bag, and I put the book in the bag, and it's never come out.
Oh, wow. That is cool. And that's what we have to do sometimes when we're going through difficult times, whether it's a divorce or anything else for that matter. We've got to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
and it may not mean you go out and buy an expensive bag, but, maybe it does.
Right.
But the reality is that if we don't take care of ourselves, who will?
And we can't take care of anybody else either.
And we can't. Yeah. You're not there for your daughter.
Nope. And that's the other part that I focus on with the coaching. There's actually I wrote a guided journal to go along with the book to that end, to help people, because you can't, if you want to be the very best parent you can be, you have to work on yourself. You have to heal from the divorce. You have to be intentional about being a good co-parent and figuring out how to work with this person. And you can't, I always say you can't pour from an empty bucket. So you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Darlene Taylor is my guest, and her book is, of course, as we've been mentioning throughout the program, it's not about us. It's not about me or you. It's about the kids, if you will. And the title, of course, It's Not About Us, a co-parenting survival guide to taking the high road. Darlene Taylor, MSW, CPC. That CPC doesn't stand for Child Protective Services, does it?
No, it's a certified professional coach. MSW. I have a master's degree in social work as a therapist for about 15 years before I transitioned over to coaching. So,
do you find that in our society today that more people are seeking out people such as yourself, coaches and mentors and so forth, so that in this case, because we're talking about divorces with children, that CPC does not have to get involved? And when I say that, Child Protective Services doesn't have to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. I actually early in my career as a social worker did work for Child Protective Services when I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. And trust me, we do not want to be involved with your family.
Yeah.
We really don't. We would love nothing more than to not have to have that job. So I do think that mental health in general is becoming something that is more easily talked about. People are becoming a little bit more comfortable with being vulnerable about them not being okay, and reaching out for help, and knowing when, I'm in over my head, even if it's not, a mental health situation, but, as seeking a coach, like I'm in over my head in this situation, and I would love for somebody to help guide me through this. And I love that for everyone, because we all need help. We all need guidance at different points in our lives. And I love that people, it seems, are becoming more willing to look for that and seek that out.
I think that, and again, this is based upon a lot of the sad, unfortunate stories that come out of Child Protective Services across the country. But a great slogan would be, please get the help you need, because if you call us, we'll screw up your family. Okay. We'll screw up your children. We'll make a mess of whatever it was you had. So don't call us, call Darlene. Because she won't mess up your family. She'll make it better.
Yeah, I'm trying. That is the goal, is to try to help people, help people come through a really hard time. For a lot of people, a divorce will be probably one of the hardest things that they go through. And, I've seen it as a professional. I've lived it personally. And, I would love nothing more than to help as many people as I can get through that with as few scars as possible.
Yeah.
And get their children through it with as few scars.
Exactly. And my statements are not meant to disparage CPC across the country. Don't get me wrong. I know there are a lot of great social workers in Child Protective Services across the country. It's just those stories that we hear that make the news, unfortunately. How could CPS...
You don't want, and this is what I always tell people, why do you want someone else making decisions about your family? And I even think that people going through a divorce, dragging each other back and forth to court. Judges don't want to make decisions about other people's family. It's your family. You know your family. Nobody wants to, these professionals do not want to be making decisions for your family. So get it together and make good decisions for your family so we don't have to.
Exactly. They don't want the responsibility. They don't, nor do they want the publicity if things go wrong, So people need to.
Job is the hardest job I ever had.
I'll bet.
Being a mother is the hardest professional job I ever had.
This is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan. Darlene Taylor is my guest, and Darlene, I have to tell you that we're fast approaching the end of our program here, but I ask my guests three very important questions. At least I think they are,
Okay.
that I want to ask you.
All right.
But I will first thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. with our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. And my thanks to my advertiser, my sponsor, if you will, for that edition of Tell Me Your Story, Carl Sussman. He has a little feature that follows our Wednesday morning program called the Insurance Hour. I actually think this has been the insurance hour because I think, Darlene, you've been providing us with a form of insurance that will really pay off down the road. And it's not going to cost you much, and you won't be paying until death do us part, but it will pay dividends down the road if you do go down this path. So we hope that you will avail yourselves of Carl and the work that he does. And my thanks to him for sponsoring our program. I also would ask you to visit our podcasts. They're on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations across the internet. And we hope that you will also go to YouTube. That's where we have the video as well as the audio portion. I hope that you will subscribe, but if you don't, maybe you can at least select notification so that when I do post a new conversation, you'll know about it and you can go and listen to that conversation. And I will also let you know that it's kind of neat. I'm into numbers, but not in terms of, oh, we gotta crank up the numbers higher and higher. No. But I'm excited about the fact that we have crossed the 100,000 listener threshold on SoundCloud through the analytics and all of the other RSS feed websites that we are podcasting through, like Spotify and so forth. So it's very exciting that we've hit that 100,000 mark. And I'll let you know when we hit the 200,000 mark. And also, if you can support the work that we're doing financially, we would be gratefully appreciative. We work real hard at trying to get guests and have conversations that are meaningful and insightful and educational that will help you in whatever situation that you are in. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And I will not pull a religious programming prank, I call it, by saying that if you don't support us, we'll have to pull the program. Forget that. No, I would appreciate your support, but it's not a command. I'm not going to be taken away if you don't. What I will do is I will make a way, whatever it takes, to keep these programs going on the podcast and the video cast and so forth. So we hope that you will support us if you can. We'll take energetic support as well. Hey, please send us all the energy you can to keep us awake and the universe asking the questions, as I am here as the universe mouthpiece, if you will. And I'm just along for the ride. We also ask, in one area we didn't get into, Darlene, we ask our listeners to participate in the Decade of Perfect Vision, where we ask people to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm place, whether it be through meditation or just stopping, as one of my guests said, for just 60 seconds. Just stop. If it's in the hallway and people are looking at you funny, let them. You're just pausing to listen. And we hope that you'll do that. And with all of that, I now will turn to you and ask you the first of my three questions. And they are, number one, who is Darlene Taylor?
Gosh, that's a hard question. I'm Sammy's mom. I'm Sammy's mom. I don't know. I'm a helper. That's my purpose. I know that my goal here is to leave people better than I found them. And so that's who I am.
Well, you've sort of answered my second question, which I'm going to ask anyway. What is your life's purpose?
Yeah, my life's purpose is to help people see themselves, see the best versions of themselves and become the best versions of themselves. And I feel like every job that I've had has been to that end. And I feel very blessed that I somehow have felt that purpose even from when I was younger. And I feel like I've done a little bit of that incrementally with all of the jobs that I've had. And so most of my work in my life has never felt like work. It's just felt like something that was coming from my heart. So.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh gosh. Day I became a mom. I know that probably sounds like a cheesy canned answer because we've been talking about parenting, but honestly, it's not, I don't exaggerate. It's the best job I've ever had. It's, the day I became a mom is that completely changed who I am. I think that's why that was my answer. Like I'm Sammy's mom, and it's been great because that's it's changed me into a totally different person in a lot of ways, not just because I'm her mom, but I think it's changed me into a more focused person. All of the things that I see in other areas of my life are because of that. So, yeah, that's my best.
I want to thank you so much for the family that you've created with your co-parent, if you will, and with your daughter. And I think it's quite exciting, the life that she has ahead of her and the life that you have ahead of yourself, as well as your friend and former husband have. And I applaud you for the achievement that you've come to in terms of the kind of, and it is a real family that you are living in and living with.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.